All right, y'all, we're going to go live in about a minute. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Friar Podcast Live. I am Billy Ritchie, your host, missing my good pal, Kevin Farahar tonight. He is home. We're really excited to kick off this awesome tilt between the Providence Friars tonight and Wagner, right across the street at the Mika Mutual Pavilion. This is going to be an interesting matchup tonight. Obviously, the Friars are heavily favored, but you never know. On these Tuesday night games in the non-conference, things can certainly change in any given possession, right? The Friars are coming off a great win against Lehigh. Let's talk about the performances really quick of both Bryce Hopkins and Josh Oduro. As I wrote about in my article this week, Bryce looked like he was trying to attack the basket rather than simply just try and get fouled, right? I think for Bryce, continuous inside-out ball movement and action around the rim is going to be very important to the success of Bryce Hopkins moving forward for the Providence Friars. I think Bryce's ability to hit the mid-range game has kind of been forgotten this year. It's something that is almost underrated about his game, right? Is that he can hit the mid-range jumper and that around the elbow he's very effective. When it comes to Bryce Hopkins in the mid-range game, I think Ed Cooley actually did a good job of showcasing him in the flex offense, right? What I'm excited to see moving forward is for Bryce to receive the ball more around the rim, right? Like receive the ball in the post, around the elbow, and drive and finish from there. The turnover problems we've seen from Bryce this year have simply come from when Bryce is out on the three-point line trying to create, right? I'm a big fan of when Bryce is receiving the ball in the post because he's able to pass pretty well for a big man himself. All right, just continuing here. So Bryce Hopkins is a special player. He's undoubtedly one of the most talented guys that's probably suited up for the Friars in recent memory, right? That I'm really excited to see him kind of adjust himself to working back in the post, taking easy jumpers, and trying to get his offense going in a more organic way than we've seen at the beginning of the season, right? I think he showed a lot of his finishing ability in the game against Lehigh. Obviously, that dunk was crazy that he had. That was a crazy finish over two defenders. And realistically speaking for Bryce, his ceiling for the rest of the season, on any given night, he can go for 20 or 25, right? That's why we've taken Bryce in as kind of like our star All-American type player, right? And then let's talk about Josh Oduro. Josh Oduro, 25, easily can get over the 25-point marker. He had 29 in the game against Lehigh. He was finishing around the basket at a great clip, like very, very exciting finishes around the basket. And so much poise, right? When he has the basketball in his hands, he's so calm. And he's so calculated in his approach, right? He has great footwork. He has the ability to kind of go inside out and provide passing. Josh Oduro could be a pro. Josh Oduro could absolutely be a pro at the next level because I think he's able to move and rebound in a high-octane offense. What I liked most about his performance against Lehigh is he did it so many different ways around the rim. He didn't just kind of look for, drop step type finishes. He was able to kind of show his jumper a little bit. He was able to show his ability, with that little baby hook. And he was able to show that, again, he can shoot from the three-point line. I mean, he may be leading the team in three-point percentage this year. That's absolutely crazy to think about for a center. When was the last time we can say we've had a center for the Providence Friars actually lead us in three-point percentage? So was really happy to see Josh sort of take an aggressive step forward. Obviously, in the game against Kansas State against Will McNair, I think there were some nerves there, and he wasn't really able to set his feet and kind of get into his rhythm. But clearly, since opening night, Josh Oduro has gotten better and better. He's gotten better with each touch. He's gotten more comfortable, and he's just looked like one of the most reliable options for the Friars on any given night. So, I mean, the Lehigh game actually was a tougher game than on paper it might have looked, right? They played North Carolina. They've played some Big East teams as well that they've kind of hung around in those games, right? Even though they're 1-4, Lehigh was able to really, give us some problems in that game. But I think we sustained any sort of run and any sort of advantages they had with great play from Bryce and Josh, right? And if anybody has any questions or any thoughts, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything as we get this live broadcast going, right? So, again, we're just covering the game against Lehigh. Saw some great things from Bryce Hopkins. Saw some great things in Josh Oduro. Saw Devin Carter take a little bit of a more of a passive role in this game, but he still scored in double figures and was still effective, right? That's the great thing about Devin Carter. He has the ability to be effective in low-maintenance situations, right? Where he's not asking for the ball, where he's not required to take a certain amount of shots, right? He can create with a steal, off the dribble, in transition. I'm really excited to see how Devin Carter's offensive game goes through the rest of the season as Josh and Bryce, I think, look to take their full steps forward as, probably the 1 and 2 options. I think Devin's 2B, but I think because Devin is so efficient with the basketball, I think feeding Josh and Bryce will be really important to the success of the team moving forward. So that's Lehigh. I wanted to talk about Lehigh a little bit. Again, shout out to Kev. He's at home. Feel free to follow him on Twitter throughout the game. So let's talk about Wagner. Wagner is an interesting team because they played both URI and Seton Hall this year. So the Wagner Seahawks of Seton Hall, of Staten Island, right, have been able to kind of see two of our opponents that we're going to play, in a very short amount of time here as the season progresses, right? So they currently stand at 2-3. They looked all right. They looked all right in the game against URI. Oh, we have some in the chat. Hey, Billy, has Hopkins turned the corner for the remainder of the season? That's a great question, Chris. Honestly, I think we need to see maybe 2 more games in the non-conference, hopefully against URI, where he kind of has that comfortability, right? As I was mentioning, and I don't think it's basketball rocket science, at the end of the day, he's not comfortable out on the three-point line extended, right? He feels like he has to dribble too much, right? And he takes those sort of 2-dribble stop penetrations where then if he doesn't get through his defender, he's going to pass the ball off, right? So in my opinion, I'd like to see him, especially against URI and Oklahoma, show us that he sort of rounded that corner and he's feeling more comfortable in Kim English's offense. There's a couple guys like Devin Carter who seem very comfortable from the start. Obviously, Josh Oduro has past experience playing for Kim. Jaden looked pretty comfortable before the injury. I'm hoping that against marquee opponents like Oklahoma and sometimes URI, obviously we're expecting to win that game, but at the end of the day, it's still a rivalry game, that we can see Bryce turn that corner. Thank you so much for the question, Chris. So let's go back to Wagner really quick. Wagner lost to URI 69-53, and they lost to Seton Hall 72-51. Wagner beat NJIT. Obviously, Friar fans will remember the years in which we played NJIT, and they gave us a little bit of a scare. They beat Molloy College, and they lost to Ford. So 2 losses to A-10 opponents, 1 loss to a Big East opponent. In the Wagner URI game, they definitely put up a little bit of a fight. They really kind of worked their offense through Melvin Council Jr. Honestly, I wonder if he has any relation to Ricky Council, of course. But another player for them to watch is going to be Tyjae Kelton. Had double figures against URI. It doesn't seem like from the guard position that we're going to be overmatched by any means, even though we're not sure if Jaden's going to be suiting up tonight. I think from my perspective, if we can stop Melvin Council Jr. And we can stop Tajay Kelton, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. As I mentioned, they also played Seton Hall, and Seton Hall kind of took care of them handedly. What I'm really interested to see from the Friars tonight is simple, right? Move the ball inside out. When the Friars are most successful, we see the inside-out penetration of good passing from Josh Oduro this season. We see good shot selections, and I think he's just looking to make those open shots. And obviously, up-tempo basketball, right? At the end of the day, we have guys like Garway who can move the Floyd, who are able to get above the rim, right? To do things in transition with our athleticism that I think other teams, that are in lesser conferences simply can't, right? So I'm really excited to see the team sort of get out in transition, get some early buckets, and, sort of like get comfortable early, right? There's really no guarantee, right? When you're playing, a team on any given night that you're going to win. But obviously we're very much favored. And in terms of KenPom efficiency, Wagner's 330th in the country in offensive efficiency, right? They play super slow, and I think that's something that we can capitalize on right away. If we can get some quick steals, if we can get some transition buckets, it's going to be hard to catch up, right? It's going to be hard for them to kind of come back if we can get to that early advantage, because they're not really the best offensive team, right? Definitely the lowest net ranking team that we're going to play through the remainder of the season, and really just an opportunity for us to continue to learn, right? At the end of the day, we want to use these non-conference games to learn. And we want to use these non-conference games to kind of iron out mistakes as we go into a gauntlet of a Big East schedule, right? Kev actually texted me on the side and was like, you're not going to believe this. Wagner's effective field goal percentage is 346th in the nation. That's absolutely terrible. So yes, if we're not able to lock down Wagner defensively, I would be pretty surprised tonight, right? But again, you never know. At the end of the day, they could come out shooting and they could come out with some energy to start. But again, right now, what I think is most important for the Providence Friars is that they're able to establish some cornerstone that we can pull from when we get into Big East play, right? We got 3 legitimate top 10 teams we're going to play. We have All-America type players. We have Villanova on a resurgence, right? Obviously the big 3, of course, being Marquette, which they looked great in the Maui Invitational. Creighton has looked good. I think they can obviously improve and be one of the most dominant teams in the country. And then, of course, UConn. UConn has looked great as well, right? So those are 3 legitimate top 10 teams. Then you have Villanova. St. John seems like they're coming around. Xavier is one of those teams where they're going to play up to their competition no matter what their record is. And you can't sleep on Seton Hall or Butler, right? Seton Hall has actually been decent to start the year. Their 2 losses are to USC and Iowa, right? I think the Seton Hall team has actually been overlooked this year. We kind of forgot about them in the preseason rankings. So I think Seton Hall is a team to actually look out for as we go into the Big East schedule. Again, if anybody has any questions or thoughts, feel free to throw it in the chat. Thank you again for joining the live pregame show here at 110 Grill. So, yeah, some other things to note. Garway Dual, right? Where's Garway at? Obviously, he had a pretty interesting, sequence of events after his 1-game suspension. I'm curious to see if he gets out in transition and is able to kind of focus this game after, not really having his best performance against Lehigh, even though we didn't really need it to win, right? Second piece is Jaden Pierre's health, right? Jaden Pierre is going to be extremely crucial to the future and the success of this Friar basketball program, right? Kevin and I have said many a times that when we watch the game with Jaden in, he's able to just sort of take this unique, calm control with the basketball, right? And he's not an upperclassman. It's very impressive for somebody at his point in his career to be so sound with the basketball, right? He has that sort of New York, New Jersey point guard swag to him whenever he steps on the floor, right? So I think as high of an upside as Garway Dual has, right, we've seen the importance of having a true point guard like Jaden Pierre, who has an extra year under his belt, who's able to change speeds, who's able to find guys in transition, create, with a really effective passing. He had some great passes in that Wisconsin game that led to some dunks and led to some transition threes. Really big fan of Jaden Pierre's game, and hoping that he's healthy as we kind of go into the rest of the non-conference, and then of course the Big East remaining schedule. Again, if anybody like to throw out any questions in the chat, happy to answer them ahead of this Wagner game. Again, 7 p.m. at the Amica Mutual Pavilion, right across from us here at 110 Grill, Fountain Street, downtown Providence. So one thing I'd like to highlight with these Providence Friars this year, again, is that defense has been the cornerstone of these PC Friars this year, right? Kevin wrote about it. I wrote about it, right? In terms of opposing field goal percentage and, and the ability to kind of lock down on three, we've looked as good as we have this year. For as much talk in the offseason as that we were going to run people out of the gym and that we were going to be, taking all these threes and, and really just getting out in transition, we've been able to slow it down at different points and get a lot of, good stops and really hold teams, tough on the perimeter, right? The perimeter defense has been awesome. Even without, again, Jaden being out there, right? We've been able to really kind of lock down on the perimeter, stop teams from gaining momentum and gaining multiple buckets to kind of gain some confidence as we go into the late first half, early second half, right? I think that's been a key to success for the Friars so far this year, right? The guys have bought in. Even with you have a group of guys from George Mason transfers and you have a group of guys returning, everybody has bought in on defense. It's been the most impressive thing I've seen this year because I was expecting us maybe to have a little bit more pop from three to start the season. It's been a really interesting look at the Friars in this non-conference schedule and how well they can defend due to their athleticism and their length, right, out on the perimeter. And then even down low, Rafael Castro has held his own when he's come in for different spurts of backup minutes, right? There's been a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk, when Will McNair transferred that we were going to have a gap right at that backup 5 position. Obviously, we wouldn't love to play Rafael Castro at the 5 if not needed, but Slim has held his own and he has exploded at the rim every time he has a chance to finish. I've been really interested. I've been really interested to see when Rafael Castro gets in the game, is he going to be, what are his finishes going to look like? Is he going to finish with authority around the rim? It's always very entertaining, right? And again, even in the Wisconsin game, he came in and played some solid minutes on defense, right? He played some solid minutes on defense against Wisconsin. Same thing against Kansas State, right? Well, we needed Rafael Castro to step up. He has been there for the Friars this year. So, we posed the question tonight back to Jaden Pierre. Would we want to see him, out on the floor tonight, or do we want to rest him in a game like tonight? The answer is probably for the best. It'd probably be better to rest him as we want him to be healthy going into the Big East schedule. But I really want to see Jaden out there playing. I'm a little selfish there in the sense that, obviously the right decision if he's not healthy would be not to play him. But I'm really excited to see Jaden step back out on the floor with Josh Oduro and Bryce Hopkins looking a lot more comfortable. Because at the end of the day, he's going to be the one, feeding them the bounce passes inside, getting Bryce active around the free throw line, getting out in transition and throwing lobs. Like Jaden has that all-star point guard swag and just the ability to kind of command the offense again, like I said, so calmly, right? That's going to be one of the biggest things for the Friars going into Big East play is the experience of a Josh Oduro, right? The resurgence of Bryce as one of the best players in the country. The calmness from Devin Carter and Jaden Pierre that they're going to make the right plays and they're going to be able to, facilitate when they need to move the ball around, right? At the end of the day, moving the ball around and getting the open shot will be a huge key to success again as we go through the rest of non-conference play and then Big East play. Because as we saw in the Wisconsin game, this team has the ability to play unselfish, right? There are definitely seasons where we're like the ball is bouncing between two guys the whole night. We saw in the Wisco game, even a little bit in different stretches in other games this year, we've definitely seen this team can show that they're very unselfish, right? I've been a big fan this season so far of Ticket Gaines, right? Ticket Gaines obviously has been a little bit slow to start on the shooting front, but I think he just provides so much from a defensive standpoint, from a flexibility of lineup standpoint, right? He's just so long. He can guard guards. He can guard forwards, right? He's just been doing a lot of dirty work so far this year, right? In his role with the Friars, and I think because he's historically been a good shooter, he's going to be able to turn the corner. He did have a big three towards the end of the game against Kansas State that I loved seeing go down. He has the ability, I think, to come off of screens and finish threes, but maybe he's best served as kind of, again, finishing at the rim, moving around in transition, and really, I mean, the most value that Ticket can provide on the floor is from the defensive standpoint as he switches from guards to forwards. You see all these teams today running different offensive sets where they're looking for high ball screens. They're looking for mismatches. Well, Ticket Gaines stopped this mismatch opportunities because he's so long and he's so athletic, right? He's able to finish. He's able to finish well at the rim, but even more so, he's able to kind of protect the rim, right? He's able to protect the rim from smaller guards and even forwards who are bigger than him when they get to post-up situations. So really looking forward to see Ticket Gaines get a little bit more settled as we go through the season as well. And again, these are the types of games the Friars have to take seriously. You're obviously more talented. You come from a better conference. They've taken some losses to teams that we're going to play and we're hopefully going to take care of ourselves, right? At the end of the day, I'm just hoping we come out sharp tonight. I'm hoping we come out focused. I'm hoping we get, again, some early steals to lead to some transition buckets because those are going to always be demoralizing to a team that struggles to kind of create in the half court. With a team like Wagner, the way in which you're going to kind of control them from the tip is simple, right? You beat them on offense and you beat them on defense with offense, right? Because they're, taking the ball up after a defensive possession in which the Friars are able to convert with the Devin Carter steal or, some good defense. It always is going to make it just a little bit harder for that team to kind of keep up, even when they're not good at offense to start, right? Guys, we're here live at 110 Grill. Thank you so much for hopping on. If you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the chat. Again, this is all brought to you by 110 Grill. We love partnering with them, and we love being able to host this live stream here right across from the amp. And thank you to the Friar Family NIL. Please check them out online on Instagram as well as Twitter. They're doing some great things for the school, and that's how we're going to continue to get the best people in Friartown to take us to that next level. So, again, if there are any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. But I just wanted to cover a couple different things as we head into this game tonight, right? Bryce Hopkins, he wants to fix that field goal percentage. At the end of the day, shooting around 30% from the field is not what Bryce was looking to do in this season, right? So Bryce has got to get that field goal percentage up. He's got to be efficient with the basketball. Obviously, takes are important and getting those shots up are important, but being efficient. He's got to be looking at that stat line and saying, he's obviously done well rebounding this year. He's always been around that 8 to 9 rebound clip from the average perspective. But in terms of increasing that points per game, he's got to be efficient with the basketball. And I think that all comes down to getting better shots around the rim. When it comes to Josh Oduro, getting Josh Oduro involved early and getting him comfortable, I think, is very important because at the end of the day, we love when Josh makes threes, but he's of course best suited with his back to the basket, finishing around the rim. As he looks near automatic, right? We've seen Nate Watson. We've seen Ed Croswell. We've seen some guys through the years who've been very efficient around the rim. Josh Oduro does it in a little bit of a different fashion that I think just provides us such a different dynamic when we're in these Big East games, right? He could step out and make that footer, that 15-footer consistently, right? And if he's really out there making threes in his second half, that's going to be a nightmare for another team. Let's talk about Corey Floyd. Love Corey Floyd's game. I think Corey Floyd is due for more of a role with the Friars as we go through the rest of the season. 3-and-D, love what he does out on the perimeter. Hit a big shot in the Kansas State game, I believe. That kind of helped things in the second half. Corey has the ability to finish like for his size, like one of the best guards I've seen suit up for the Friars. So I'm excited to see him be a little bit more comfortable maybe now that Bryce and Josh have established their roles and kind of spot up for some corner threes, slash, get to the basket, and really just kind of play off of his defense, right? He's a great defender. He gets after guys. He's very talented when he's playing against smaller guards, right? He's able to kind of use his physicality to get to the rim or create a turnover. So I'm excited to see Corey Floyd continue to get a little bit more comfortable as we go through the rest of the season. After that, in terms of Devin Carter is one of those types of players where his defense again ignites his offense. I love when Devin takes, those pull-up type threes when he's feeling confident. But at the end of the day, I think Devin plays off the ball so well, right? I think when Devin, gets in those patterns of, dribbling and trying to create too much, that's where he becomes less effective. He is such a great shooter off of an initial pass from the top of the key. He is a great slasher when he has a slower defender in front of him. He is a great finisher at the rim, which we saw at the opening night highlight dunk, right? Devin Carter is one of those guys that he just has that motor that you can't teach. And in a game like tonight, I want to see him active and aggressive against whoever he's defending. What do we think the ceiling for Jaden Pierre is? I mean, the ceiling for Jaden Pierre continues to go up, honestly. I think I originally looked at Jaden as one of those, 10 points a game, 4 or 5 assist guys a night with a productive starting role. But now I just think seeing a little bit from Jaden this year, I honestly could see more. I could see a 15 points a game guy. I could see an 7 to 8 assists per game guy, right? He has feel that you can't teach. Like what we talked about Devin, right? He has the motor you can't teach. When we talk about Jaden, he has the basketball IQ and the feel that you simply can't teach, right? He's definitely special, right? And I'm really excited to see what Jaden can become in this Big East season. That's when you prove yourself, right? Non-conference is great and all, but at the end of the day, it's all about what you do in Big East play. And I think matching up against guards like Tristan Newton and Tyler Kolek are going to be challenges for Jaden. But do I think he can get to that level of play? Yes, I do think he can get to that level of play, and I know Kevin agrees with me on that, right? We saw him in high school shoot very well. We saw him move with pace. We saw him be dynamic with the basketball. These are things that you can't necessarily teach a point guard mid-college career. Jaden has those intangibles that, again, made it so important to keep him when we were looking at the transfer portal and why Kim English was able to keep him was obviously through his one-on-one game, but at the end of the day, Kim got to find and he got to steal in keeping Jaden Pierre. So we are getting close to game time. We've got about 4 minutes left on the show. If anybody has anything to provide in the chat, please send it through. Just want to highlight again that this Wagner team has certainly seen its struggles. Obviously, it would be a tough loss to our net rankings and our overall, resume if we took a loss here. I truly hope the Friars are not looking past it. They certainly didn't look like they were overlooking the Lehigh game. That was a great sign. We really need everybody, obviously, in the stadium to come out tonight and cheer, and bring some energy for the Friars. These games are tough. It's really easy to overlook a game when you got a big rivalry game coming on Saturday. And I want to touch upon that really quick. We got URI coming back on Saturday. It almost feels like, it's getting overlooked with, the Georgetown hype and the UConn hype, right? I think the URI game cannot be overlooked. The URI game is going to be in a very important, building block for the rest of the season for the Friars because Archie Miller has had this team in Kingston playing. I mean, obviously, really they have one player who scores about 15 a game and he's shooting about 57% from the field. And I believe it's Zick Montgomery. But when it comes to URI, right, their wins this year were against JWU, Providence, Johnson & Wales, Yale, and some other, we had Northwest, we had Wagner, we had Fairfield, right? These are teams that we should be beating at the end of the day, right? So yes, I do think the Rams are beatable, but it's always with that type of rivalry game, you never know what you're going to get from URI when they come into our building, right? I think from a talent perspective, if we can have Devin Carter lock down their best guard, I think we're in great position. But I really think the URI game is going to tell us a lot about how we rise up in big moments before Big East play. At the end of the day, this is going to be our first true test on our court of a really, a formidable opponent with a formidable fan base to go up against. Again, if there are any questions to close out in the chat, I'm more than happy to take anything. So, yes, I think URI, even though we will be favored to win it, we should win. And unless Real in the third becomes Real in the second, I feel pretty confident. But at the end of the day, I do think that we have to bring it against URI to understand who we are in a big match at home. We're going to have games this season, Georgetown included, UConn, Creighton, Marquette, where we're going to be tired, where the other team's going to bring it. They're going to bring their A game against us because they know Bryce Hopkins is going against them. They know that Devin Carter's going against them. We've had some great returners that have put some targets on our back this year as we go into the remainder of Big East play. So to conclude here, I just want to say to everybody, thank you for joining. Chris, we have another question. Who are the top 3 impact players moving forward for the remainder of the season? Okay, to me, this is pretty simple. I'm going to exclude Devin Carter for simple reasons. I think he's as consistent as you will find. So I'm not going to put Devin Carter in there. I'm going to put Bryce Hopkins 1. I'm going to put Josh Oduro right there, number 2. And I'm going to put Ticket Gaines, number 3. I think Ticket Gaines, with an honorable mention of Corey Floyd, because I think we kind of know what we're going to get from Devin and Jaden. I'm really excited to see Josh Oduro be more aggressive. I'm really excited to see Bryce take care of business as our best player. And I really want to see Ticket Gaines, take that role, which I wrote about at the beginning of the season. 3-and-D guy, matchup nightmare, and just that veteran presence that kind of brings us over the top in those tough games. Guys, we'd like to thank everybody for joining. Go Friars.